matchup, the clash of the titans.
Yes.
Fabi against Maxime. Fabi with the black pieces. And is it going to be a Berlin? It is not a Berlin.
There
Fabi
will be an Archangel, Bishop C5.
Oh, will he finally play his opening?
No.
And he doesn't. Come on, Fabi.
What's going on here? I want my money back. And we have...
Technical DQ.
No, a Chigo...
Yeah, that's a classical Chigorin. Yeah.
Wow.
Very interesting turning point here, because you can play d5 here and close everything down forever, or you can play knight d2 and allow some more fun lines. For me, I used to play the Chigorin with black, and I gave up precisely because d5 exists. But yeah, MVL allows for more life
action.
Yeah, I think as black you prefer this, because it's not that you're immediately equal here, but there's more scope for you to have counterplay later down the line.
Peter, help me out. But after the move knight b3, my understanding is the theory goes endlessly. It's like knight b3,
yeah,
bishop
but nobody
e
really looks at this anymore. This used to be incredibly popular in, I would say, maybe the 80s.
Yes.
And by the time I started looking at this as a potential way to play with black, nobody really knew anything anymore, including myself, of course.
I think it was hilarious. It was a New in Chess magazine where Vladimir Kramnik was annotating a game, and he was like 4 pages of analysis of these beautiful moves of, I think, this variation. And finally, on the 5th page of analysis, he says, so, my novelty. It was like, what? All the previous moves have been played by many other players. So the theory is very, very deep. Tanya, jump in.
Yeah, I'm just
side?
amazed at looking at the speed with which Fabi has been playing the entire opening. It feels like both players know exactly what they're doing, the plans and the position. And I don't play the Chigorin with black, but clearly Fabi, he's managed to create an expansion on the queen side. b4 always in the air. He brings the rook to e8 first. Where is white's play? How does this continue? Does black ever want to get in b4 in these positions?
In some positions, but it also gives white additional squares for the pieces. For instance, the piece on any piece on c4 would be a good square for it. So black generally tries to wait with it. As for white, trading and playing bishop c5 is very typical. Just trying to trade those two bishops off, leave the position with the bishop on d3 against the bishop on d7, which is quite awkward for black. I have a feeling I've seen this before, and b5 before is playable here, for instance.
Wow, that's 24 moves, and you're saying this has been played before.
I have a feeling I've seen this position before, but I will not be committing to this statement very strongly 5 hours into the broadcast.
Chigorin variation, the Chigorin defense in the Ruy Lopez, it's been around, well, since Mikhail Chigorin himself from the 1800s. Why has it fallen out of fashion, Peter?
I think specifically because other things are more dynamic, and I want to return us to that option that MVL has passed by on move 12. There is a way to close everything down.
D4, D5.
Yeah, and then black is not really all that much worse, but the character of the positions you get there, I think, attracts very few people these days.
Gotcha. Knight f3 on the board, asking some questions. What are you going to do about the e5 pawn?
Yeah.
If you go bishop f8, then
bishop c5
bishop
for sure.
c5
Then bishop c5
for sure. And then I kind of feel I've got a nibble. In terms of an advantage is what I mean to say. Tanya.
You have to defend the e5 pawn. I can't imagine a scenario where you try to give it up. I mean, I see the rook on e8, and he does go for the idea of queen b8.
I kind of thought there might have been a counter
Maybe
attack
rook
with bishop c6.
b5.
But,
I don't know what was going to happen, but queen b8. I like it also because you just keep everything defended. And perhaps after bishop c5, you have the option to draw back with the bishop and not really trade the dark squared.
You mean bishop to d8 in this case?
Not a happy square, but bishop d8, bishop a5, try and get b4 in. But we're getting so many moves in so quickly.
Bishop c5, bishop
Traded.
takes c5, and you mentioned, Peter, the c4 square. That looks like a magnetic square for the bishop. Pardon
These
me.
types of positions are generally just quite unpleasant for black. You often hold them. It's not that you're already in tremendous amounts of trouble, but this kind of symmetry with the pawn on a3 against the pawn on a4 and the pawn on a4 against the pawn on e5, white generally is the side that attacks those potential problem points. So bishop c4 or queen e3 first maybe is also something to consider, but I like the bishop on c4 very, very much.
Me too. People who play Joko pianos do so for a reason. They like the bishop facing that pawn on F7.
I think the only reason it hasn't been played yet immediately is after the trade on a3 and queen d6, the rook has no squares. So you have to start calculating because
Queen e3.
Yeah, and then rook c8, and maybe you will have to trade some pieces you don't want to trade.
And we do see a trade on b4 right away.
That's a bit surprising because that makes defense a lot easier. Presenting black with a target on b2 is generally...
Yeah, it feels like black has counterplay in this position.
Rook a5 maybe.
The queen on b8 was defending e5, no longer.
Rook a5 seems playable.
Rook a5 looks decent, yes.
Looks like maybe the worst is behind Fabi here. And also I wanted to say that maybe Fabi is teasing us with the future courses, because he's played about 5 different rule opuses. Yeah.
He feels very undecided in this.
Yeah, so maybe he is trying to gauge the audience reaction to all of this sublines of the Spanish.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that if White was to put the rook from c1 to c4, Black intends on giving up the queen for 2 rooks with queen c5, rook c5, and then takes on c5.
Agreed.
So instead, he does trade on a5. And at some point, is Black thinking about bishop c4 on the board? I was thinking push the a pawn forward and just completely demolish everything on the queen side in 4 versus 4.
Clean it out.
Clean it out and
then it's very balanced.
Thank you very much.
Yep, it feels very, very balanced. Now again, I said coming into this round that if I'm in MVL's shoes, I don't mind a quiet draw where I've kind of pressed a little because I've had such a marvelous day at the office.
I don't want to spoil it.
And the day at the office is about to be improved by events elsewhere because Jan Nepomniachtchi is completely lost against Anish Giri.
Oh, that's
had a bit of an opening.
Check that out, but right now, it's also on about 2.5 minutes for both these players. So he doesn't really dilute the queen side, but keeps the pressure on the b pawn. So in certain positions, rook will come into play to b8, but he chooses the square c8. A pin on the bishop, knight d3 attacking the queen.
I was about to say, now that we've created a weakness for ourselves on
honestly,
B2,
I'm not in love with what MVL is doing
I didn't like it either. I thought that he was going to play queen d2, trade queens, nice handshake, thank you for the day, have a good
should still be okay, but yeah, allowing queen d4, for instance, would have been difficult, and he plays queen e3, I think,
I was
correctly.
about to say, yeah, just not to allow the black queen to show up on the d4 square. Queen e3.
Start to finish, for me, this game has been Fabi being ambitious. He did not choose the Berlin. He went for the Chigorin, took on d4 quickly, played the first few moves with complete understanding and speed, and he's managed to create counterplay.
Complete understanding and speed. You said the magic word. What is the clock times?
It is under 2 minutes for Fabi now and about 2.5 for Maxime Vachier Lagrave. There we see it on our screens.
Well, that's a nice 5-second difference that could become important as we just saw the move bishop e6
and offers a trade.
Okay, so how does that work out?
Trades everything, and now we're going into a queen and a knight middle game with the e4 pawn under attack currently.
I was about to say that there was an option of queen takes d3, but there was a check. I beg your pardon. f7 would have been hanging in that case. So queen and knight versus queen and knight, e4. Is this too even?
Should be very level, yeah. I guess currently the white knight is slightly better positioned because knight on f6 has very few squares. Whoa, what's this?
What? That's
he
too
wants
clever.
He wants to trade e4 for a4 and claim that he's slightly better there.
That's too clever by far.
Yeah.
I mean, queen c2.
This would always be a very difficult decision for me on the board. Do you defend a4 or do you trade the pawn and give white this pass on the queen side? And
there's no comfortable way to defend it, so I think we take on e4 and we go for those positions. They don't really look all that scary. Yeah.
And the b pawn is not so scary. And he's done it. By the way, Nepo went down, as we mentioned before.
After 6 out of 7, he loses the last 2.
Oh, this is always the most painful game to lose.
That's what I was talking about. You know, you had a great day at the office. Don't spoil your day. Make a draw to just go home feeling good about yourself. Queen takes a4, knight takes e4.
This is getting a bit double-edged, I feel. You know, material equal, very less pieces on the board, but with the b pawn, I like that centralization.
Whoa. There's a check.
King h7.
Knight takes e4. e5?
You could take on d1. You could give queen d1 and take on f2. What's happening
And
after
then
all of that?
f7 is hanging. Queen d1, take on f2, but I take on f7. So we're looking at a position after knight takes e5.
I was trying to calculate that
and
on failing.
check.
By the way, if
Please.
Maxime wants to draw, is there a perpetual after queen e5? I see queen e5 and queen f5, queen c8.
Easy draw.
Is that a draw?
Yes, it is.
Oh, he goes for it.
Yes. And he
I
said,
don't know, but knight e5 may be more ambitious, but he goes, and this is going to end in a draw.
Exactly.
Exciting game, but the result you predicted.
I felt it all the way. It's just the professional thing to do when you've played really an outstanding first